Hey guys, it's Doodly Squatch here. Got a drawing from a suggestion in the comments. Someone said, do a self-portrait. So, easy enough. And so, let's do that and story time. And here we go. So, being a big fella, one would assume that I never really got bullied in school. At least, as I am now, people would look at me and think that. But much to the contrary, I had my own experience with bullying. I'd say younger than most, but probably not much different than other kids. But when I was in 4th and 5th grade, we had just moved to a new town. So still, trying to make new friends. That was certainly interesting. But I made a friend, and interesting guy. It's funny, looking back at things, seeing it through the lens of me being older now. A lot more things stand out to me, but this kid, he he was really into, he loved Tina Turner, really into Janet Jackson, loved, the music, the dancing, all that, and was very, had, his hair was always done real nice, and got lots of compliments on his hair, which is kind of funny to think about, for a 4th grader. But so yeah, we were friends for a while, and foibles of youth, whatever. We ended up not being friends, and he undertook to sort of turn the other kids against me, and start rumors, that sort of thing. And this being the mid 90s, the go-to was that to make the rumor that I was gay, and at that time, golly, that was, that's like getting the scarlet letter put on you. Kids nowadays, they're out and proud, so not too much of an issue. And I think, if someone were to suggest I was gay, I think the other gay kids would get mad. But yeah, just spending lunchtime hiding from him and his friends, and them looking for me and wanting to harass me and all that, and just being singled out and ostracized was new, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like the feeling it gave me. And it extended to home, where they would like prank call my house. Someone would call asking for me, and I'd get the phone, and then it would be someone I don't know, and they'd just be shouting terrible things at me, and I'd hang up the phone, and it's like I had a break-in, like a robber came, and it was nuts. It was interesting. And eventually, 5th grade ended. I went to middle school. We weren't in the same middle school, so never really had to see that anymore. Never saw that kid again. And for years and years, I sort of had that, fear and just anger built up around it, and just thoughts and feelings associated with that. I think I definitely developed a bit of a anger problem, and it was in middle school that I got much bigger, went from like 5'10" to about 6'4" within a year and a half. So bigger than most of the faculty, but always remained fairly timid, pretty quiet. I had my group of friends. We all got together and played Magic the Gathering in a teacher's classroom, so sort of excluded myself from the the emotional battlefield that is middle school. So I didn't really participate much. It wasn't until high school that I sort of found my rhythm and was able to socialize normally with people, and beyond my group of friends, and make new friends, that sort of stuff. But it's interesting that to look back and see the impact that kind of had on me at the time, and see how that's kind of affected adult me. And when my kids deal with bullying, and it's hard not to want to fly off half-cocked and do something rash, but that doesn't help much either. But I guess interesting side note, with the advent of social media and Facebook and all that, I was able to track down this kid that had tormented me in 5th grade, and not so much to my surprise at that time, but it turns out he was gay. Shocker, the kid who was into Tina Turner and Janet Jackson and all that. Not that that's not trying to put him in a box, but more so just adult me looking back. It was fairly obvious, and sort of discovering that and confirming that made me feel more, I don't know, empathy towards him, and not so much anger and animosity. Thinking, putting myself in his shoes, being a kid at that time, where having being that in that lifestyle was demonized, and it posed a real danger in a lot of cases. So for him to be to feel that way, and to be scared or in denial or something like that, and to sort of project onto me, or to throw the scent off, go after him, that sort of thing. It certainly gave me more opportunity to find forgiveness for him, and just have a better understanding of probably what he was going through, being able to look at it, hindsight being 20/20. But that was a long time. From 5th grade probably till, golly, I must have been 24, 25, that sort of thing. Just kind of holding that in and having that and carrying that, and being able to kind of let that go and look at it through a different lens, helped out immeasurably. So my advice, armchair psychologist here, my advice would be to try to figure out why someone feels the need to put others down, or to bully, or that sort of thing. Yeah, some people are just vicious. Kids are vicious. Good gracious. So I would say, come at it at an angle where you're trying to understand them more. Sometimes it is as bad as it seems. Sometimes it's not. And I'm happy with how I turned out. Even though those times were rough. Others had it rougher, and it certainly left its impressions on me. But I'm pretty okay. I can look at myself and be okay with how I am. And with my kids, I try to impress that upon them too. It's like you gotta be happy with yourself, and if you're happy with yourself, who cares what others think about you? That's their opinion's secondary. On the other hand, when I'm in my darker moments, when somebody's saying mean things to me, my response is usually like, you think anything you have to say is better than what I've said 6 inches from the mirror? Like, it's like I'm my own worst enemy. Are you kidding? So it's an interesting dichotomy between those two. And it's something everybody wrestles with. So it's for me, it helps to have a at least a sense of humor about it. And yeah, and that's, here we are drawing my mug, and I always have to include some kind of tentacles or skulls or something like that, because that's me. And it's fun. I love the color purple. I've always enjoyed purple, and I think a big part of why I didn't allow myself to enjoy the color purple was because it was associated with gay folks for so long in the 90s. And I was worried, just, I guess, past trauma wouldn't allow me to enjoy it. But man, I love purple. So I'm just a happy little grape, and I don't care who knows it. And no color can identify you any other way than you want to. You're yourself. I am me. I know me. I don't try to claim to know others, and I just know me. And even that's tenuous. Here we are, white outline, victory lap. Gotta love it. It's been really fun doing these videos, and I love seeing how my boy edits them. Editor, put in a funny. We'll see what he comes up with. I don't know. I love it. It's so fun to have this, my little secret public journal, and not a lot of subscribers right now, and that's okay. Maybe this backlog will come back and it'll be interesting. But for now, I'm happy with how it is. But thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, notification bell if you're crazy. I don't know who does that. Yeah. Have a good day. Thanks.